Hi everybody, my wife and I just did our very first blackwater dive with Pura Vida divers in West Palm Beach, Florida in February 2018. It was about the most amazing, exhilarating dive experience of our lives, all right? With blackwater diving, we have the ability to see larval stages of organisms, arthropods, mollusks, fishes, that develop in these early stages, and then they swim deeper when they mature. We also see organisms that come up from the very deep water at night to eat that you don't normally see. And then there's some organisms like maybe comb jellies and jellyfishes that might spend their whole life in this part of the water column. At any rate, it was just amazing, and I can't wait to show you some of the pictures I got, although I did have some issues. What the blackwater dive involves is we depart on the boat, 6 to 8 divers, around 7:30 at night as it's getting dark, and we go out several miles. The boat ride's about 45-50 minutes long. And we get out in the open ocean, and the boat crew drops a large buoy into the ocean. It's lit, and there's a weighted line that goes to about 50 feet, and the line is also lit. The divers then jump into the open ocean, into the black water, all right, and we drift along with the buoy in the buoy in the open ocean. We try to keep our depth between 15 and 55 feet, something like that. And we have to watch the line to make sure we stay near the lit line. And the boat follows the buoy and the divers, okay? Now, we were a little apprehensive about jumping into the open ocean at night, but we were lucky to meet very experienced blackwater divers on the boat and very experienced underwater photographers too, who gave us really helpful hints and tips about the diving and the photography as well.
I used a Nikon D7100 camera with 60mm Nikon lens, Ike light housing, a single 160 Ike light strobe, and a small focus light. Here's a view of my camera setup. At the lower light, you can see I attached a lanyard to attach my camera to my BC. This blackwater dive is in about 500 feet of water, and if I let go of my camera, it would be gone into the deep ocean floor, never to be seen again. I used the newer Nikon 60mm macro lens seen at the right. It has superior autofocusing capabilities compared to the older Nikon macro lens. This is a snapshot taken just after our boat departed. On the boat ride out, we were fortunate to meet other divers who were really experienced blackwater underwater photographers. They were very kind and helped me decide what settings to use on my camera. I learned that they generally used 2 or even 3 strobes and had 2 or more focus lights. I had only a single strobe pointed straight out and above the flat port, set on manual, 50% power. It was suggested to me that since I only had 1 strobe, I should increase my ISO, so I bumped it up to 400. My aperture was set to f20 for decent depth of field, and my shutter speed was 1 to 1/60th of a second. I set my focus light on high power. We jumped into the water. At first, I didn't see anything except what looked like particulate matter in dark water, with occasional bright lights from fellow divers or from the lighted buoy and weighted downline that we were trying to follow on our drift dive in the open water. In 500 feet of water, you can't see the bottom for orientation, and it took me about 5 minutes to even begin to settle in with my buoyancy gauges and dive buddy before I was somewhat comfortable. Then, I started to notice that some of the apparent particulate matter was actually living animals, and I started to try to get close and take some pictures of these small moving objects. Unfortunately, most of my initial shots were either blurred, underexposed, or had backscatter, or all of the above, as in this shot, or in this shot as I got closer. Now, my dive buddy found some cool subjects, and I tried to get really close, focus, and get some images. This is another one of my initial shots. It's a cool subject, and I didn't have much backscatter, and what little I had I removed easily in Photoshop afterward. I didn't have as much because I was close to this subject, but it's still somewhat blurred. I found it really difficult focusing on the small, semi-transparent moving subjects, while we were also both drifting along in the water column. This is a series of salps, which are tunicates. Very, very interesting. I've never seen this before. The focus was okay, but the image is underexposed, even after I made some adjustments in Lightroom afterward. Probably because, in part, at least I had only 1 strobe. Now, this is a ctenophore, a comb jelly. Now, ctenophores are not true jellyfishes, and they're in a separate phylum. This image is somewhat underexposed again, but it has good focus. I really like this image. You can also see what I think are small animals in its stomach. I wasn't aware that some of the subjects I was following were moving up and down the water column a fair amount. Again, at 500 feet depth and in the dark, you can't see the seafloor, and it's hard to tell if you're going up or down the water column. I noticed that my ears often alerted me to changes in depth. I was also slightly underweighted and expended some extra air trying to go deeper after going near the surface while following a subject. On my next black water dive, which I can't wait to do, I will have more weight and monitor my depth more carefully. As the dive progressed, I bumped up my ISO to 640 and increased my strobe power from 50% to full power to get better lighting. This is another ctenophore. One of the cool things about ctenophores is the light scattering produced by the beating 8 rows of cilia, which produce beautiful colors that seem to move along the comb rows. This is due to light diffraction or scattering by the moving cilia, not bioluminescence. Most ctenophores are also bioluminescent, but that light, usually blue or green, can only be seen in darkness, and light from any strobe would render it not visible. This is my best and luckiest shot of the dive. I had no idea what I was photographing at the time. One of the divers on the boat afterward told me this was a larval form of a gastropod. You can even see its eyes. Amazing. I've never seen anything like it. I removed a little backscatter in post-processing, but otherwise didn't even alter the image much. I really love this image. Such an interesting subject, too. I plan on learning more about larval and juvenile forms of various fishes, crustaceans, and mollusks.
Well, there you have it. I didn't get too many good pictures. I had trouble with focusing on the little small, semi-transparent and moving subjects as they and I drifted along. I had some trouble with illumination. Next time I'm going to bring 2 strobes and put them at an acute angle for better illumination and maybe less backscatter. And I also had some issues with my buoyancy. Sometimes following a subject up or deeper in the water column, you can't really tell how deep you are. You have to watch your gauge, be careful, and your ears are often the best way to know what your depth changes are. Having said all that, this blackwater dive was honestly about the most exhilarating dive experience of our lives, and we cannot wait to go back. I hope to show you some more videos in the future. Thanks for tuning in.